All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today for our third webinar in our What's Next webinar series. This one is entitled Upping Your BI Strategy Game. What is BI and how can you make the most of it? I'd like to take a moment to welcome you to our webinar and to introduce to you who's on the line with you today. So my name is Stephanie Baskerville. I am the content writer here at ProServe IT. And joining me today are two of my wonderful colleagues at ProServe IT. We've got Mihai On, Director of Marketing, and Scott Sugar, ProServe IT's lead for data and analytics. So welcome, Mihai and Scott, and thanks for being on the line with me this morning. And I just wanted to say, folks, quickly, if you have any questions throughout this presentation, you can feel free to use the GoToWebinar platform. We've got a questions tab on there, and you can put any questions that you have in those in that questions tab. We'll be happy to get those questions answered for you as soon as we can. So we wanted to talk a little bit about data today, of course, and similar to how an unrefined diamond's value increases significantly when you process it, so does your company's data. And during these uncertain times that we find ourselves in, smart database decisions are a must for businesses. And that's, the more data that you can see and understand, the more decisions that you can make and the more successful that you can be. So that's what we are here to talk about today. And with that, I am going to turn things over to Mihai and Scott to begin our webinar. So take it away, folks.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us at early morning at 8 a.m. Thank you. So, Scott, how are you?
Yep. Good. How are you doing, Mihai?
Doing good. Scott is based in Vietnam, so that's why we are having our webinar at 8 a.m. He's the brain, the true brain behind our BI practice here at ProServe IT. So
that's why it's dark in my window.
Yes, that's why. Yes, exactly. Okay, so there's our agenda today. So some intro that Stephanie did. Thank you, Stephanie. And we'll jump right into BI conversation. So what is BI, Scott? So first of all, before we talk about anything else, let's identify what BI is first.
Yes. So business intelligence, Stephanie's to the diamond refining process is a good one. But overall, it's taking the data that you have within your company's systems, cleaning it, modeling it, transforming it, loading it into a central repository where you can do reporting and analytics, whether that's historical looking or predictive, all with the main aim of allowing your managers and executives to make decisions based off of data.
Right. So with that definition, let's get into some of our poll questions. So we have two questions for you to get started our conversation today. We really want to make our webinar content very much focused on you, the audience who joined today this morning. So hence the questions. First question, do you have a BI strategy in place at the moment? You should be able to see the questions now on your screen. So if you can please select one of the two choices there.
Leave it up for another maybe 15 seconds.
Sounds good. Okay, what's the result, Stephanie?
So I'm going to close the poll here, and it looks like we've got 38% who said yes, they do, and 62% who said no, they don't.
Okay, great. Okay, so next question. How important is a BI strategy to your organization?
I'm going to launch the poll again here, and folks, you'll see the results there. Or sorry, you'll see the answers there that you can select. And again, we'll leave it open for maybe 10 more seconds just to select one of your answers there so we can get an idea. Interesting results, I'll have to say, so far coming in. I can see them on my end.
Great. What
All
is
right,
the result?
close the
Can we
poll here.
publish the results so people can see?
Let me see if I can. I'm going to close that poll and share the results here. Yes, there we go. So you should be
Awesome.
able to see the results there, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So one of our top 3 priorities, 8%. Important but not one of my top 3, 67. We haven't thought about it, 25. Okay. Okay, good to know. So based on this, Scott, let's get started our conversation.
Mhm.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So we talked briefly about what BI is. Then I think from non-expert perspective, sometimes when I try to understand what BI is and, Googling and trying to search what BI is and where do I start, there were ton of vocabularies that I couldn't really
Yeah.
understand fully, like BI, BA, and data analytics and data warehousing and blah, 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 blah. The list goes on. So some education here, please educate me. BI and BA and DA, how they all fit in together. Stephanie, if you can go to the next slide, please. Next one. There you will see. Next one, please. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So typically, I look at I split it up into data and analytics, where data is the data side of the house is how you extract your source systems or from public data sources, how you then transform that data, which is cleaning and remodeling it, and then where you load that data into. So that's the data analytic or data, I would really call that data engineering. And that's the initial work that you're going to be doing. On the analytics side, that's where I typically look at things like plugging your data or plugging your central repository data into a machine learning or other predictive analytic platform that can help you find patterns or find abnormalities or things like that, which in concert allows you to then start to make, find insights and start to make data-driven decisions.
Okay. So business intelligence is more of like overarching concept, and under BI, you have business analytics that helps you understand what's going to happen in the future based on the data that you have?
It could be, so business analytics, I would say, could be future, it could be present, and it could be past. You can analyze any of those pieces. Something that is very interesting today is the ability to do more predictive analytics than we've been able to do in the past. And that's because of the more easy availability to machine learning and artificial intelligence platforms in the cloud that can allow you to handle large amounts of data, score that, make predictions, score those predictions, and then and then allow you to continue to make predictions as new data comes in.
Right.
That would be the analytics side. The data side is more moving your data, cleaning it, and understanding how to model the data in a way that your business users can then help you with that analysis, or at least help you with the creation of reports that bring some of your data into clearer view.
Right. Right. One thing that you mentioned to me before that really stick with me is sometimes like gut decisions business
Hmm.
decision makers time to time make, which is good thing. Sometimes you need to make those decisions, but when you
Yeah.
have a BI strategy in place and you have the understanding of your data, then they can back you up
Yeah.
with your gut decisions, right? Yeah. Have you
Yes,
witnessed that?
I'm a believer that I'm a believer that gut decisions can be very useful and can be
Yes, I
necessary
agree.
in certain situations.
Yeah,
That being said, if the gut decision turns out right, it can be nice to then go back into your data and try and analyze, what trends were actually there that maybe I just felt, but now I can actually validate, and maybe we can now use this as a basis for um, making additional decisions in the future. I
right.
still think that there's a place for gut decisions, no matter how well you can analyze your data. But
Yes.
um, yeah, I think there's a mix of the two that is very healthy.
Yes, yes, I do agree. Okay, so as we promised to you guys today, the attendees, before the webinar started, we have a dictionary, BI dictionary ready for you. So later today, when we send out the follow-up email with the recording, you are going to get also a copy of BI dictionary that contains a lot of other terminologies that you will frequently see when you are getting into BI. Okay, so most of our webinars, we want you to talk about our customer stories to make it a lot more relevant to you guys today. I think that's where the actual gold comes from during this webinar. So let's get into, dive into our customer stories. We have 3 of the customers, amazing customers stories that we want to share today. So let's start it with the marketing agency, Scott. Where did
Yeah.
they begin? Where did they
So
begin
the
their,
marketing,
yeah,
yeah, the marketing agency we worked with, they came to us with everything, all reporting being done manually in Excel. A lot of reporting being done personally by their CFO in Excel, and they were spending a lot of time on it, and they had actually adopted a new uh, business critical system, an online application that did not have the same data extraction capabilities that they were used to. So they ended up losing some visibility into their uh, uh, business processes and overall health of the business. So that's where they came to us.
I see.
We sat down with them, looked at these online systems that they were using to run their business, um, worked with the developers of these online systems, and built automated data pipelines that extracted the data from these systems, centralized it into a central repository, modeled it, cleaned it up, and then generated out reports based off of all of those systems.
Okay, got it. So
Mhm.
who came to you from this organization? Who was the
Yeah.
stakeholder? Who was the major stakeholder, and who was the champion of this BI project?
So the champion was the CFO,
Got it.
and it was due to the fact that they had lost some visibility into their business, specifically around tracking their jobs, who was working on those jobs, and how those jobs were progressing through tasks and activities. The system that they had just adopted didn't have great built-in analytics.
Right.
And then on top of that, they had other systems that were also doing other things. You know, one system you're familiar with is HubSpot for marketing, and that was another piece to it. So it was,
Right.
how can we tie all of those systems together so we can say, you know, this lead in our marketing system is tied actually back to this final revenue in our job system and in our accounting systems.
Right. Right. So it was all around integration. Businesses
The big
use.
piece was integration and making the data available again without having to do hours of manual Excel reporting every day.
Right. Right.
Now, I think I mentioned to you before in one of our earlier chats where they actually replaced that key system about a year after they adopted it,
Right.
and moved to another system, and they would have lost access to all of that data in the old online system. And we were able to continue to run our automated data extraction up until a few hours before they got rid of the old system. And we were able to integrate the data from the new system so they still continue to have a historical picture of their business, despite, you know, in a centralized, common historical picture of their business, despite the fact that they've gone through a couple different key business systems.
Right. So they did integration of their data from a lot of different business applications, and they reduced ton of the manual work they were used to doing to get those data from multiple different sources and visualize it so they could be more efficient. And three, even though they changed the system, the business app that they are using, they didn't have to lose any of the data from the previous system because they were doing this BI project. So
yeah, because we were doing the BI project and because we were centralizing all the data and putting it into a common format.
Right. Great. So they started there. Are they still working with us on BI project on an ongoing basis? Do they have like roadmap for future? Okay. What would that look like?
Yeah. So we continue to work with them. Their roadmap is taking what we've done for their finance department and doing similar work across their marketing and sales teams to provide that a similar level of visibility out to department heads and executives in their organization. And then they continue to have different views that they want to see into their data that we are able to work with them on to build off of that central repository and give them additional views and analyses into their data.
Right, right. Stephanie, do we have any questions before we get going? Want you to be mindful with our audience questions.
Not quite yet, but we can certainly just take this second to remind people that if they do have questions, they can type it in. Oh, we do have a question. Fod is asking, Scott mentioned they modeled the data. What is the process you used? How did you arrive on that data model?
Awesome question.
Yeah, it is a very good question. There is a 4-step modeling process proposed by Ralph Kimball back in the 90s. He initially proposed this model, and what it is essentially is define the business process that you're looking to model, determine how you want to be able to slice and dice that business process, determine what you want to measure from that business process, and then determine at what level of granularity you want to measure that process at. When you and I talked in the past, Stephanie, I used the analogy of and Ralph Kimball uses this analogy as well of a marketplace. And if you're in a marketplace, a market, you would say, okay, well, let's look at the Apple sales as our business process, and then we can determine how we want to be able to slice and dice those Apple sales. Is it by customer? Is it by vendor? Is it by date? And then we determine what we want to measure, which is probably something like quantity and price. And then we determine at what level of granularity we want to measure it. Do we want to measure it at the level of an entire sale, or do we want to measure it at the level of a single Apple? And once you have those 4 pieces in place, that allows you to look at your source systems, look at your and build your desired destination table, what that's going to look like.
Right.
Does that answer the question?
I believe that was a very succinct answer, yes. And I'm just going to double check and make sure that there's no follow-up questions to that. But I think we're good to move on.
Great.
For now.
Yeah, 4 steps to a successful BI strategy. We wanted to finish our webinar with this slide after customer stories, but the question came and perfect. There you go. Okay, so let's move on to our next customer story. We have a customer in food and beverage sector industry.
Yes.
Where did they begin?
So they came to us with a specific technology, which was Power BI. And they came to us with a number of Power BI reports already built. They had built out reports on their sales health, essentially. So all the different sales they were doing, and what vendors' products they were selling, these kinds of things. What they wanted to do is they wanted to be able to allow suppliers, each supplier, to see that supplier's own sales data.
Okay.
But they didn't want to have to license every supplier because they had hundreds of suppliers, and the licensing costs would have been quite high to license every, 200 something suppliers with Power BI Pro licenses. So they would be able to consume the data. So we worked with them and used the Power BI embedded technologies that allow us to build an external website and then embed Power BI content into that website with proper authentication and access control at the supplier level that would allow the suppliers to be able to see those reports. That was one piece. And the other major piece was helping them build their row level security functions that allowed them to build a single report, share that out across all of their suppliers, and based off of the row level security functions that we built with them, they were able to have it such that each supplier could only see that supplier's data, and each region manager could only see that region's sales data. Yeah, that's where we help them out.
Okay. So they want their BI strategy where they started was not just internal use, but external use with their network of suppliers. So it doesn't have to be for other companies, doesn't have to be suppliers, maybe it can be partners. If there's a company working with a bunch of different partners or a bunch of different, I guess, branches too, right? Some
customers
have, a lot of different offices with globally, then you can work with all those people, but very specific data to each branch or each partner, each supplier. You can share those data safely with this BI tooling. Oh, amazing. Okay, so I guess the costing was the biggest thing, one of the biggest thing for them. They didn't want to spend a lot of money on the BI tool to be able to do what they were trying to achieve.
Yeah. There's the two main drivers were cost and then manageability of the solution after. If you build, they built a single report that they can now manage one report across hundreds of suppliers, as opposed to building hundreds of reports, one for each supplier. So that, vastly reduces the maintenance of the solution. Because now if you need to make a change to your report, you make a change to that one report. You don't have to go and make a change to 50 or 200 separate reports. So that's where row-level security, that's where row-level security can really come in very handy, and allowing you to do it in a way that you can check and verify that this person, you can view reports as an administrator in that company. They'd be able to review their reports as one of their suppliers. So that way they could go in and regularly confirm that everything looks as it should. This person, this supplier is not seeing anything they shouldn't. This region manager is not seeing anything they shouldn't. So it provides a couple of additional benefits there.
Okay, so from the admin's perspective, I create one report, but there is section on the report dashboard that I can click. Okay, this customer is seeing this data. This customer, this supplier, sees only this data. So without having to create 100 different dashboards, 100 different reports, I create one, and everyone sees just their data. Oh, that's smart. That's amazing. Efficiency is the
helps
king,
a lot.
yeah?
And ease of maintenance in a data solution is really important. And it goes back to the marketing agency even, that manual effort of building Excel reports and copy pasting data into Excel reports and then pivoting it and then copying pasting out of your pivot table into something else. All of that work, for a CFO spending a couple hours a week on something like that, or a couple hours a month on something like that, that time adds up really quick. Being able to automate that, or being able to reduce maintenance on something means that the solution is much more cost effective in the long run.
There you go. And when I first was trying to understand what BI is and BI requirements and the cost aspect of it too, my assumption was this is going to be expensive. BI just screams to me, expensive. But you mentioned that not every user needs to have certain license because this what is that thing called again? Making the
Power BI embedded.
Embedded, there you go. By doing that, you don't have to provide a license to every single user. So that way it can be cost efficient too. BI doesn't have to be expensive. Thing that you, that's good to know.
The idea is to kind of find the balance between cost and functionality and all that stuff. Similar in most realms of IT.
Right. Good to know. Any questions from the audience, Stephanie?
One just came in. Let me just pull it up here. So we have a question from Vanny. They're saying currently these analyses happen manually in Excel at our business unit level. With a BI tool, should this function be centralized in IT?
If so, I would say that the manual reporting at the group level would, if you're going to automate it, that a lot of the automation or monitoring of the automated data pipelines would be handled by IT operations, because it's systems that, if you're doing full data extraction, transform, load processes, you're probably going to need IT people that can manage and work with those technologies. That being said, a lot of the BI tools now can plug directly into your source systems, and you can start to have to build out reports without having to do a full extract, transform, load process. In those cases, those reports could still be done at the business group level. With, if someone knows Excel, they can probably learn Power BI or Tableau or other products in the market pretty quickly, because they are similar to, they're a Power Pivot table on steroids, some people would say.
I see. I see.
And the basic functionality is still there, but it allows you to do a lot more. So still can be done and still can be automated at the group level without having to dig into or work with IT resources. Although as you get more complex and it's best to have a good partnership with IT operations. And ProServe, we often work with clients, both their development teams and their operation teams, and use DevOps practices and technologies within the data world as well. Not just, we look at data as a specialized subset of software development.
Right. So at each department level, team level, the managers and staff can run their report, create their dashboard, and look at the data on a regular basis instead of monthly basis or quarterly basis. They can see live data. If they want to make it daily, even they can do it without bothering or bugging the IT team. Okay, can you make this happen for me? Can you make this happen for me? They don't have to do that whenever they want to see data, right? They can do it themselves whenever they need to look at their data and analyze their data, as long as they have the right tool in place.
Yeah. And most of those tools will support the ability to essentially map out the steps that you're going through as you clean the data and remodel the data in those tools, such that even for a business group manager, they would be able to start to save time on their reporting and analysis using a BI tool as opposed to using Excel directly. And now that all being said, Excel has taken a lot of the functionality that Power BI has, and that functionality of being able to get data that Power BI has and clean it and transform it has been put back into Excel.
Oh yeah.
There's still, there are still additional benefits of using a visualization tool like Power BI or other instead of Excel, but a lot of that extract, transform, load capabilities that are in the BI tools are back in Excel now. Just the visualization engine isn't as pretty or as easy to work with.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the benefits from my end, at least from the department head's perspective. If I can see my data, like visualize data, not just the spreadsheet, visualize data on a regular basis, whenever I want to look at or whenever I need to look at something, our historical data, to be able to forecast what's coming, to be able to make any decisions, that I think that's very powerful. Instead of spending a whole bunch of time to create another report, looking at a bunch of different apps, I think that's where the BI really shines from my perspective. So.
Looking at a bar chart allows you to see a trend much easier than looking at a table.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. And by the way, Scott put together an amazing Power BI dashboard with the COVID-19 data, which is on our COVID-19 resources page. Why don't we share that link in our follow-up email so you can see how those bunch of different data can come into one spot and be reborn as a dashboard. So we'll share that in our follow-up email. Okay, let's move on to the next customer story, manufacturing sector. What was that customer's objective when they first came to us?
Yeah, so the manufacturing company, they were fairly advanced in their data systems already. They came to us with a data warehouse already that was taking data from their Dynamics ERP system, so the Microsoft Dynamics ERP system, and moving that data into a centralized data warehouse, modeling it, moving it into the warehouse, and then had built some reports off of that data already. The reason they came to us was they have a number of manufacturing systems, these old giant IBM mainframe systems that had more up-to-date data and slightly different views into their data. Specifically, in this case, it was their inventory and shipping data. And they wanted to be able to take those legacy systems and take the data out of those legacy systems and move it into the same data warehouse that was had all of their ERP data in it.
Okay. What is data warehousing, by the way?
So a data warehouse, the easiest way to describe a data warehouse is that it's another database, similar to a lot of line of business transaction systems, but instead of the transactional system, which is optimized for because you're performing a transaction, you're selling some apples or something, and you write that data into your transactional database system. A data warehouse is optimized for read access, such that you can query large amounts of data very quickly. The other main purpose of the data warehouse is to act as the central repository for your data, so that you can have multiple disconnected source systems that are all feeding data into that data warehouse.
Got it.
Yeah. The idea is you model that data in a common way such that business users should be able to connect into that data with reporting tools and start to either ask questions of their data or start to build out reports on that data.
Okay, got it. And that can be both cloud and on-prem. And if so, any specific benefits to each option?
Yeah, so yeah, all of this stuff can be done on premises or in the cloud. The reason that ProServe typically recommends the cloud is that what we've seen in the past is clients' requirements expand. So as you build out a data system, then you start to derive some interesting insights, and the question then becomes, well, how can we now integrate this data, or how can we integrate some weather data to find, on rainy days we don't sell as much. So that gives us that ability.
So it is a lot more flexible. If you use cloud, then it can be flexible going forward, depending on your needs, whether it's increase or decrease, I guess. You can easily increase or you can easily decrease. Okay.
Yep. So you can increase or decrease, and you can, the really nice thing is that you can increase to near unlimited scale in the cloud.
Okay.
Without having to, pay for it all up front. If you're doing it on-prem and you don't buy enough resources at the beginning, it means you have to go back and buy additional resources and set those up, and that can take time. Whereas with a cloud-based system, you can go from, okay, we've got a couple hundred megs to, okay, we've got 10 terabytes.
Right.
And it doesn't really matter as long as you have the money to pay the cloud provider for hosting 10 terabytes, you can do that. And if you need to triple that in the future, it's no problem. And it's all, the systems we work with are all consumption based, or give you the ability to run them and pause them such that you can try to manage those costs as best as possible.
I see. And there's no wait time. When you need to increase, you can just click a button, you can increase. The same thing with decrease.
Yeah.
Good to know.
That's right. Yeah, with the food and beverage company we worked with, we were able to scale up and down and even pause their embedded analytics. So when they're not using it, or when there's no traffic, we're able to pause that so it doesn't cost them anything, and then we can resume it after.
Got it. How about security? When companies think about having their data somewhere, they always think about security, and they should. So.
Yeah. So, in the cloud, they have a number of well-known security certifications already. So things like physical security, you don't typically need to worry about at all. And then it becomes a question of making sure that you apply the correct security policies to the different resources that you're working with, which is something we help our clients with as well, to make sure that they don't expose data in unknowing ways.
Right.
And then for some companies we work with, they have requirements of where their data is kept. So we have insurance companies in Canada that, legally aren't allowed to have their data leave Canada. So we're able to work with them to utilize both the Canada Central and Canada East data centers from Microsoft to ensure that their data never, goes anywhere else.
Cross-border, yeah. Good to know.
Yeah.
So what's next for this manufacturing company? What's in their roadmap?
So we continue to work with them on integrating additional legacy systems. So there's still more of these giant main systems that are sitting on their factory floor doing work. So that's one piece. The other piece we're working with them on is Internet of Things devices that are doing that are essentially sensors along their manufacturing process that are sending large streams of data ongoing as their manufacturing process happens.
Got it.
So working with them on being able to take that data from those sensors, move it securely into the cloud, perform both real-time and historical analyses on those, and then even feed those into predictive modeling systems that can tell us, when maintenance needs to happen of different factory systems and things like that.
Okay. Oh man, it is already 47. Time really goes by fast. Hopefully, it was the same case for the our audience today. Any questions from the attendees, Stephanie?
Yeah, we've got two here actually. So the first one,
Great.
Fod was just asking a clarification question on the name of the BI strategist that we mentioned, Scott. Ralph,
Yep.
what was Ralph's last name?
Kimball, Kimball.
There you go.
All right.
Did you hear that?
There we go. And then the other question we have here is from Greg. He's saying BI projects sound quite big and ambitious, so how would you recommend getting started? It's $1 million question.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think before we mentioned, from the other question we had earlier, we mentioned that looking at things at the business process level, is typically the way to start a data warehousing project. And what I would usually recommend to our clients is that they start with one or two business processes that they want to analyze and start that as the initial bite, instead of trying to take your whole business's value chain and try to analyze the whole value chain, which is depending on the complexity of the business, could be 6 months to a year long project with multiple staff members. Looking at things at the business process level, like we did with the manufacturing company, where we said, okay, well, let's look at your inventory with those, and then as we make good progress on those business processes, then we can start to look at other business processes that you think will, analyzing those will drive value to the business.
Right. So start by size instead of trying to tackle everything at once. Start by size. Oh, that's good to know.
And the nice thing about that is once you've taken the first bite, you've started to develop the common ways that you're going to be slicing and dicing the data. So by date, by customer, by vendor, by product. And then as you go to take the second bite, you'll find that you can continue to use a lot of those common, we'd call them, or Ralph Kimball would call them, dimensions. So you can continue to use those common dimensions for the next business process, with the end goal being that further down the line, you're just taking the business process, the pieces you want to measure, and plugging it into everything you already have. And then that kind of gives you an ability to continue moving quickly and providing value at as many steps along the way as possible.
Right. So the first bite becomes kind of template for your future projects.
Yeah, it becomes a starting point for you to continue to for your next bite, and then as you get real far down the line, there probably aren't many new dimensions you're going to be adding. It's just, okay, we know our customer, we've got our product list, we've got all this done already. Now it's just plugging in, okay, Apple sales.
There you go. Any other questions from the audience?
I think we can move on to the next steps, Mihei.
Okay, great. Okay, so the next step, how can we help, Scott?
So what I like to, where I like to start with all of our clients, and like we did with the marketing agency, is start with a BI discovery session. In this session, we review a number of things. with you. We go through what your desired outcomes are. We review your current reporting processes and how long those take. We look at your measures, metrics, and KPIs. We do a review of your data sources, and then we get into some data security and governance requirements to determine what those look like, and any whether your company has any branding guidelines or anything like that that will need to be followed along the way, with the aim of being able to give you a good roadmap of where we think you would need to go, and which technologies will help you get there.
Right. And how long does it usually take to do a discovery session?
Yeah, so the project is typically a 2-day engagement, and it's there's 2 4-hour sessions that we have, or depending on the client, sometimes we split those up into 4 2-hour sessions or something like that.
Right.
So there's that piece where we're working with you and reviewing all of the stuff that I just mentioned, and then the other day is where we go and work with our team to start developing that roadmap and plan for you to move ahead.
Right. Right.
That's 2 days, for a very small and non-complex client. We might even, we'd look at maybe just 1 day of effort if they only have, 1 or 2 source systems or something like that. And then we have clients that are extremely complex and they're coming to us with tons of source systems. We still try and gear them towards that 2 days so we can bite off enough without falling into, analysis paralysis or anything like that. But yeah, that's typically what it looks like.
Got it. Okay, we have just 5 minutes left. Any other questions from the audience, Stephanie?
I'm not seeing any coming in at this time, Mihei, but certainly, folks, if you have any questions, you can add them into the questions tab there, or you can email them to us at cloud@proserveit.com as well, and we can definitely get those answered for you. Yeah, but I think we could probably wrap it up, actually. And I'll turn my camera back on here so I can officially say take care to everybody. But thanks so much, Scott and Mihei, for being on the line with me this morning, and for sharing your wisdom with us, and for educating us on BI strategies. And I think that you provided a lot of great content for us. So appreciate you being on the call with us, and thanks to everybody on the line with us as well. We do hope that you were able to get some insight into this and learn from the customer stories that we presented. But certainly, if you do have any follow-up questions or anything, or would you like to explore that BI discovery session as well, you can email us at cloud@proserveit.com, and we can definitely help you get started. But until then, we'll give you the rest of your day back, and we do hope that you stay safe out there, folks, and enjoy your day as well. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.